100 pounds of explosives detonate inside Munich's Bürgerbräukeller. The ceiling collapses. 8 people die instantly. 62 more pulled from the rubble. Adolf Hitler was supposed to be standing 6 feet from that blast. 13 minutes earlier, he was. Every year, Hitler gave a 2-hour speech at this beer hall, commemorating his 1923 failed coup. Same place, same times, same podium. For 30 nights, a carpenter hid inside after closing, working by flashlight until 3 a.m., chiseling a secret chamber into the stone pillar directly behind where Hitler would speak. No training, no accomplices, just hand-filed clock gears, stolen quarry explosives, and a plan so precise that it could not be done by one man alone. But it was. The man who built that bomb was already under arrest when it detonated. He sat in a custom cell 80 miles away from the explosion. The bomb worked perfectly. The timer was flawless. The only thing Georg Elser couldn't engineer was the weather. Fog over Munich that night forced Hitler to take a train instead of flying. He cut his speech short by 30 minutes and walked out the door 13 minutes before his own death. How did a village carpenter nearly change world history alone? And what did he tell the Gestapo when they refused to believe him? Hermaringen, Württemberg, 1903. A village of farmers and craftsmen in the soft hills of southern Germany. Johann Georg Elser is born into this quietness and never quite leaves it, even when he travels. By 16, he is apprenticed to a carpenter, learning that precision is not a talent, but a discipline that wood remembers every imprecise cut permanently and forgives none of them. He moves through the 1920s picking up jobs, cabinets, window frames, furniture commissions. He earns a reputation for clean work and keeps himself. Nothing distinguishes him until the years between 1925 and 1932, when he drifts through clock-making factories scattered along Lake Constance, the long lake straddling the German-Swiss border. He isn't trained as a machinist, but he watches, gain knowledge, and handles. The filing of gear teeth, the calibration of mainsprings, the way a movement of energy bleeds through a sequence of wheels at a rate you can set to the second. He doesn't know yet why this knowledge matters, but soon he will. By the mid-1930s, the Third Reich has reorganized German life around loyalty and noise. Hitler speaks on every radio. Crowds perform the salute at every public gathering. Elser refuses. Not loud, he is never loud. He simply won't raise his arm. He won't vote for the NSDAP. He won't join the cheer at the beer halls. In the Reich's social calculus, refusing to perform enthusiasm carries its own risk, and Elser understands this. He stays small, stays quiet and low profile, keeping his accordion under his arm on weekends and his opinions entirely to himself. In 1936, he takes a position at the Waldenmeyer armaments factory in Heidenheim, commuting by bicycle each morning from his hometown of Königsbrunn. This is the turn. Waldenmeyer manufactures ammunitions, and Elser, assigned to the shipping department, gains access to the factory's restricted section where fuses and detonators are produced. He watches. He handles components. He learns about the process. But the carpenter who spent 7 years learning how gears carry energy is now standing in a room full of mechanisms designed to release it all at once. The connection forms somewhere beneath articulation. Under Gestapo interrogation in November 1939, Elser will state precisely, "Before my decision in the fall of 1938, I had stolen neither parts nor powder from the factory." The wording matters. Before. It implies an exact moment of commitment to a threshold crossed at a specific date. The theft comes after the decision. The decision comes after November 8, 1938. That evening, Hitler delivers his annual speech at the Bürgerbräukeller, commemorating the 1923 beer hall putsch's failed coup, now celebrated as founding mythology. Elser slips into the hall with the crowd. He cannot reach the podium, but he doesn't need to. He watches the geometry of the room instead, where guards stand, where patrons cluster, how the building empties after closing. Lastly, the thick, load-bearing stone column stands 6 feet behind the lectern. He touches it on his way out. Solid, load bearings. If that pillar fails, the ceiling above the stage fails with it. He is on the train south before midnight, and his plan is already complete in outline. What would move a quiet carpenter from silent descent to building a bomb? And why did every intelligence service in Europe miss him entirely? Autumn 1938. The radio in Georg Elser's rented room carries the news from Munich. Hitler has taken the Sudetenland. No war, no resistance. Chamberlain waves a paper and calls it peace. Elser sits at the edge of his bed, hands still carrying sawdust from the day's work. Austria disappeared in March. Sudetenland in September. The pattern is not complex. A man who takes without consequence will continue taking until someone stops him. No one is stopping him. So, Georg Elser took a choice. He becomes a single man with a plan he will never speak aloud, not to his sister, not to his parents, not even to the woman he sometimes sees on weekends. For the next 11 months, he will prepare to kill the most protected man in Europe, and he will do it the only way a carpenter knows how. One piece at a time, measured twice, cut once. At Waldenmeyer, he starts with black powder. The factory's storage rhythms become a second clock in his head. When supervisors take their coffee, when the shipping bay empties for lunch, when fatigue makes colleagues careless at shift's end. He watches. He pockets pellets a few at a time, never enough to be noticed, always enough to matter. He sews hidden compartments into the lining of his coat. At home, he transfers the accumulations to a wooden suitcase with a false bottom he's built himself. The suitcase sits under his bed. By late 1938, it holds approximately 250 powder pellets. It is enough to experiment with. It is not enough to demolish a stone pillar. A carpenter with no training came closer to killing Hitler than any general or spy. Stories like this don't stay buried here. Subscribe next week, there's another one. In April 1939, Elser quits Waldenmeyer. He takes a new job at the Fulmer quarry in Königsbronn, where hillsides are blasted apart for gravel and stone. The work is more excruciating. The access is better. Over the following months, he removes more than 100 blasting cartridges and 125 detonating caps, never from the same storage point twice, never in quantities that trigger an inventory check. He stores them in his parents' cellar, beneath the house where he was born. His mother asks no questions. His father, who drinks and rages, notices nothing. In May, a rockfall at the quarry pins Elser's leg. The injury pulls him off active work for several weeks. He tells his family he needs to rest. What he needs is time. In his parents' orchard that July, hidden by apple trees and high grass, Elser begins building test devices. He uses salvaged clock movements from his Lake Constance year's mechanisms. He once filed tolerance for other men's timepieces. Now he files them for himself. He packs small charges. He sets delays. He detonates them at measured intervals, adjusting the gears, recalibrating the springs, until the timing holds within the margin he needs. For a week, he sits in the Bürgerbräukeller, during open hours, nursing drinks and watching. He photographs the interior, the stage, the gallery, the load-bearing column behind the podium. He paces distances. He checks sightlines. He confirms what he memorized the previous November. The pillar is paneled in wood to waist height, stone exposed above. The paneling is a door he hasn't opened yet. By August 1939, Georg Elser has powder, cartridges, detonators, photographs, and measurements. He has a date. November 8th and a target for the pillar, so he has refined his timing mechanisms until they hold true across days, not hours. What he doesn't have yet is the 30 consecutive nights he'll need to hollow 600 kilograms of stone from the inside of a guarded building, leave no trace by morning, and disappear before anyone thinks to look. He boards a train to Munich. The suitcase under his seat holds tools, not explosives. The explosives will come later. Can you hollow a stone column in a crowded Munich beer hall for 30 nights, 4 hours each, chiseling in darkness and leave no trace by morning? And what do you do when the hall isn't actually empty? Night 12. The first 11 nights pass without incident. Elser develops a rhythm. Enter the Bürgerbräukeller as an ordinary patron, order a drink, sit near the back way. When the final customer leaves and the doors lock from outside, he's already pressed into a broom closet at the rear of the hall. By 11 p.m., he's at the pillar. By 3 a.m., he's gone. The staff never checks the closet. The guards never patrol past midnight. The system works. At night 12, things might go sideways. He's been at the pillar for 3 hours when he hears footsteps. Not outside. Inside the hall, Elser kills his movement mid-strike. No time to reach the exit. He spots the broom closet 6 feet to his left and moves. The closet smells of old mops and chlorine. He presses himself into the corner behind a tin bucket, knees drawn up, breathing through his mouth. Through the gap beneath the door, silence. Then the footsteps resume, closer now. The sound of a man who believes the building is empty and is checking to make sure. He waits another 20 minutes until the sound fades into the distance. Then he moves. 20 strikes. 30. His shoulder starts to ache where it always aches now. The muscle that drives the mallet has been doing this for almost 2 weeks, and it has begun to announce itself. He switches arms. The left is weaker but functional. Somewhere above him, the building settles. A beam creaks. Elser freezes. His breath sounds enormous in his own ears. He counts to 60. Nothing. He resumes. By 1 a.m., the sack is a quarter full. Stone dust coats his forearms, his trousers, the lining of his lungs. He can taste it, calcium and jeet, faintly chalky. He's learned not to cough. At 2:15 a.m., he hears footsteps. Elser can see nothing through the crack. He tracks the guard by sound, breathing, the squeak of a shoe against the floor, the jingle of keys. The man is close, maybe 15 feet, maybe 10. For 4 minutes, Elser counts them as the guard stands near the pillar, smoking. Then the footsteps resume. They cross the hall, fade down the corridor, and disappear. Elser does not move for another 10 minutes. When he finally exhales, his hands are shaking. Not from the cold, from what almost happened. Elser enters the Bürgerbräukeller each evening as an ordinary patron orders a drink, sits near the back, watches the room empty. When the doors lock, he's already in the closet. By 11 p.m., he's at the pillar. By 3 a.m., he's finished. He packs the stone debris into cloth sacks, walks out past the arriving breakfast staff with a nod, and disposes of the rubble in parks and alleys across Munich. Then he returns to his rented room, washes the dust from his arms, and sleeps until noon. He does this for a month. The landlady notices only that her tenant keeps odd hours. The second engineering problem is concealment. A hollow pillar with an obvious access point is worthless for the first cleaning crew to notice. So Elser builds a false panel from wood, matching the existing decorative molding so precisely that under the dim hall lights, it looks like part of the original construction. He paints it. He scuffs it to match the age of the surrounding panels. He fits it flush. Elser seals the panel for the last time that week. He boards a train south to Königsbronn to retrieve the device he's been building in his parents' cellar. How does a self-taught carpenter construct a clockwork detonator precise enough to fire within minutes of a specific target time, and what nearly derails it at the last possible moment? When most people are asked to imagine a bomb, picture something crude, a container of explosive with a burning fuse counting down visibly. Elser's device inverts every part of that image. He needs not seconds but days of latency, a mechanism capable of waiting inert inside a stone pillar while the hall above it fills, empties, fills again, and finally holds the right man at the right lectern at the right moment. He needs absolute timing from a machine that cannot be checked once the panel is sealed. He handcrafts nearly every component. The clock movements are filed and calibrated by Elser himself into two independent mechanisms running in parallel, not because he has excess materials, but because he understands redundancy in his bones. If one timer seizes on a cold November night, the second fires regardless. This is the reasoning of a systems engineer, not an improviser. The explosive core packs over 100 pounds of material into the column's hollow, blasting cartridges stacked around a black powder charge, surrounded by 10 blocks of fine, detonating powder, with fuse lines running to the triggering assembly. When Gestapo explosives experts disassemble the surviving components recovered from the rubble after November 8th, their report describes the construction as excellent expert work. They initially refused to accept that one untrained man built it. The clocks can be wound and set up to 6 days in advance. Their maximum drift across that full range is approximately 15 minutes of precision a professional clockmaker would consider acceptable in a manufactured piece. Elser hand-filed every gear. One cog wheel from these mechanisms, photographed on a Gestapo examination table in 1939, still carries the file marks. On November 2nd, with the Bürgerbräukeller closed for the week, Elser carries the assembled bomb in pieces in a suitcase and installs the device into the pillar cavity. He works by feeling the darkness, seating the charge pack, threading the fuse lines to the detonator's housing, and closing the panel. On November 3rd, he returns to wind the clocks and discovers that one timer has failed to latch properly. He repairs it. On November 5th, he reinstalls the complete dual clock detonator. On November 6th, 2 days before the speech, he made his final visit to the Bürgerbräukeller and sets both clocks to trigger at 9:20 p.m. on November 8th. He closes the false panel for the last time. Elser travels south to Königsbronn. He leaves his carpentry tools with his sister, tells her he is going hiking, and packs a travel bag. On the evening of November 7th, he boards a train towards Switzerland. He plans to cross the border near Constance, disappear into the neutral country, and wait for news from Munich. He has done everything a human being can do. The rest belongs to the clocks. But there is one variable that no amount of mechanical precision can eliminate, and it is already forming in the atmosphere 200 meters above Munich, thickening hour by hour as November 8th approaches. What does Elser say when border guards search his bag and find wire cutters, gear sketches, and photographs of the Bürgerbräukeller, and why, with that evidence in their hands, do they nearly release him anyway? November 8th, 1939. Munich wakes under clear skies. By afternoon, Hitler's security detail has confirmed his arrival at the Bürgerbräukeller for the evening speech. The annual Putsch commemoration draws the original loyalists, the men who stood with him in the Odeonsplatz in 1923, and the speech traditionally runs long 2 full hours of grievance and mythology. The hall fills by 8 p.m. 3,000 people settle into their seats. At 9:00 p.m., fog rolls into southern Bavaria from the north. Not mist operational fog, the kind that grounds aircraft and suspends navigation. Hitler has a flight scheduled to Berlin the following morning. His handlers check conditions and recheck them. By 9:05 p.m., the flight is canceled. Revised plan. Hitler will board a train at 9:31 from Munich's main station, overnight to Berlin. This single logistical revision is 13 minutes. To make his train, Hitler must leave the hall by 9:15 at the latest. At 9:07 p.m., he closes his notes and steps back from the lectern 30 minutes short of the speech's scheduled conclusion. The crowd holds its applause for a beat, uncertain whether he has actually finished. He nods once, executes the mandatory salute, and his security detail surrounds him. They move quickly, filing through the hall's rear passage, out the side exit, and into waiting cars. By 9:10 p.m., Hitler's convoy clears the building and accelerates south toward the station. Near the podium, a waitress named Maria Strobel is clearing tables. She stands 5 feet from the pillar. She is more concerned with Hitler's party having left without paying their bill than with anything structural. At 9:20 p.m., both clock mechanisms complete their rotation. The sleigh drops, the firing pins drive, the stone column ceases to exist. The ceiling above the stage collapses in a single folding motion, taking the steel gallery, 2 main support beams, and the platform with it. Hitler's lectern 30 feet from the pillar is struck by masonry and twisted sideways. Maria Strobel is thrown by the pressure wave through a set of shattered double doors and into the street outside. She survives with minor injuries. 8 others in the hall do not. 63 more are pulled from the debris with wounds ranging from fractured bones to destroyed lungs. Among the rescuers scrambling through the chalk dust is Friedrich Braun, father of Eva Braun, Hitler's companion. He has arrived minutes after the speech to find the hall a ruin. For 8 minutes, Hitler's convoy rolls south without news. Then a signals officer intercepts a radio transmission from Munich and passes a handwritten note forward. Joseph Goebbels receives a telegram simultaneously on his own vehicle. He goes pale before he finishes reading it. Hitler, told that the Bürgerbräukeller has been destroyed, sits quietly before speaking. He tells his photographer Heinrich Hoffmann that some form of providence compelled him to leave early. This statement, spontaneous, documented, and immediately self-serving, becomes the cornerstone of a myth the regime will spend years amplifying. Official statements blame British intelligence, then a communist network, then an elaborate foreign conspiracy. 800 separate denunciations flooded the Munich police in the following week, each naming a different culprit. The border guards had actually been preparing to release him. For 45 minutes before the explosion report arrived, they debated whether his tools constituted sufficient cause for detention. The news from Munich ended that debate permanently. What happens when the Gestapo interrogates a man who names no accomplices, changes no detail across 4 days of sessions, and calmly explains that he acted alone because he was the only person who needed to? The Gestapo brings Elser to Munich on November 14, 1939, and begins formal interrogation immediately. They expect a network. The scale of the device, the precision, the sustained planning, 30 nights of undetected access to a closely monitored building points in their analysis to professional intelligence assets. They send photographs of British operatives to Elser's cell. He looks at them without recognition. They administer scopolamine. Physical pressure follows across multiple sessions. The story does not move. He built it alone. He stole the powder alone. He hollowed the pillar across 30 nights alone. The work of an entire special force done by a single man. There are no names, because there are no accomplices. The consistency of this account across the 4-day formal interrogation in Berlin, across years of subsequent pressure at Sachsenhausen, is documented by historian Lothar Gruchmann, who recovers the complete Gestapo transcripts in the 1980s. Elser's confession from November 13, 1939 matches every subsequent statement. Nothing changes because nothing is concealed. The Gestapo's explosives report, classified upon completion, describes the bomb as the work of a highly competent technician. The experts who examine the detonator components recovered from the rubble cannot reconcile the sophistication of the device with its maker's biography. One Carpenter, 7 years of part-time clock factory experience, no formal education in explosives, no engineering training, no access to professional tools or manufacturing equipment. The cogwheel he filed by hand, photographed, archived, and surviving in German records, carries the marks of a man who worked a problem until the tolerances were right, then worked it again. The Nazi leadership resolves this contradiction by suppressing it. Public statements blame an anonymous British plot. The interrogation transcripts are sealed. Elser is classified as a prisoner of special significance, not to be tried publicly, not to be released, not to be discussed. He is transferred to Sachsenhausen concentration camp under a personal custody designation issued by the Reich Security Main Office. In 1944, as Allied forces advanced from the west, they moved him to Dachau. He spends 5 years and 5 months in captivity. He is kept in the special prisoners block, conditions less immediately lethal than the general population's preserved, presumably against the possibility of a future show trial that would finally reveal him as a foreign agent and vindicate the conspiracy narrative. That trial never comes. What comes instead is April 1945. April 9th, 1945. The American army is 3 weeks from Dachau's gates. The Reich is collapsing toward Berlin. Hitler, issuing orders from the Führerbunker, authorizes the execution of specific political prisoners before liberation can produce them as witnesses. Elser is among them. He is shot at Dachau on the morning of April 9th, 23 days before Germany's unconditional surrender, 26 days before Hitler's own death in that same bunker. He was 35 years old when he set the clocks. He was 41 years old when they executed him for it. The official cause of death listed by the camp administration: killed during an Allied air attack. The Federal Republic of Germany did not formally recognize Elser as a resistance fighter until 1998. A square in Berlin now carries his name. A memorial marks the former site of the Bürgerbräukeller in Munich. The slow arc of his rehabilitation mirrors the larger difficulty Germany faced in absorbing what his story actually proves. The first serious attempt to kill Hitler came not from the Wehrmacht officer corps, not from foreign intelligence, not from an organized resistance cell, but from a carpenter in Königsbronn who read the news, did the arithmetic, and decided that one man acting alone could be enough. He was late for 13 minutes. The generals who plotted against Hitler had everything Georg Elser didn't: networks, couriers, co-conspirators, access to the inner circle. They mounted 11 documented assassination attempts between 1939 and 1944. The most famous, the July 20th, 1944 briefcase bomb, detonated inside Hitler's Wolf's Lair, killed 4 staff officers, and left Hitler with a ruptured eardrum and a tremor in his left hand. None of them came as close as the carpenter, who worked alone in the dark. The Gestapo couldn't believe one man had done it. History couldn't decide what to do with him. For decades, Germany barely mentioned his name. The generals got memorials. Elser got a footnote. If you want another story of one person against an impossible system, a mother who walked into Stalin's gulag to bring her son back, that's next. Video.